Hello there guys, welcome back to Easy Tutorials by Dave. This is Excel 2010 and I'm explaining data input. Now when you're inputting things into Excel, you've got three basic types of data. You've got what we call labels, which is text. You've got values, which are numbers that are going to be calculated, and then you've got formulas which start with equals. Now you'll hear me say in this video a few times labels, values and formulas, and it's imperative that you understand exactly what's going on when you're inputting data into Excel. And when you're just putting data in, don't put any of the formatting in, don't put no pound signs or percentage signs in. Put the data in as raw data and then format it afterwards, and it'll just help you understand what's going on once you've applied your formats. Now on the screen, as you can see here, I've just put some little bits of data in on the workbook just so you can see it, and this will help you understand what's going on. Now, when you're using Excel, they use Excel for all sorts of things, like using it for databases and analysing data and, looking at data and things like that. But let's imagine it's your job to come in, and this is my sales team. And my sales team have been selling this week, and I've set them a target of £75. Now imagine that the team has got the little figures in, and if they've got £75 or above, they'll get a commission. And if they don't get a commission. And it's as simple as that. So if I was to ask you, and it's your job to tell me who's got the commission and who hasn't got the commission, if I asked you now how to do that on this sheet here as you're looking at it, and I simply said to you, this one, you'd say, no, it doesn't get any commission. This one does get commission, this one gets commission, this one doesn't get commission, and this one does get commission. And you'd be right in every time. But the thing is, if you had 200 people that you were doing it, then it would become tricky because it makes it a lot harder for you. So what we would do as a designer building this sheet, I would write a formula, and the formula would look and do the work for you. Now at this stage, if you're new to Excel 2010 or any Excel at that point, don't be worrying about this formula right now, because it's not about the formula. This exercise is purely about the inputs, labels, values and formulas, so you understand what's going on. Now the formula itself I would say equals if, open bracket. Now I'm only doing Ann at the moment, so I'd say if Ann sales, which is in this cell here, is greater than or equals to, now the target I set them was £75, yeah? So that's the test that I'm giving you. So I'm saying if Ann sales is greater than or equals to 75, if that's true, I want to see the word commission. Now I'm not going to put the full word commission, I'm just going to put com so you can see it. Now let's imagine that they haven't reached the target. So if they haven't reached the target, now I'm going to sack them. So it's either they've reached the target and got the commission, or no, we've sacked them, okay? And then when we press enter, notice, well, poor old Anne's sacked because she hasn't reached the target. And when we pull this down here, notice now it does the job that we wanted to do. So Anne sacked, Mary Bill's got commission, John sacked, and Mark's got his commission. And the next week when we come along and we put the new figures in, so let's say we're putting them in, notice now it's calculating them as it's coming along, and it's literally giving you everything you need. And there you go. That's how it works. If we put that one to 79, so we know he's got the 79. So he's got the commission in. Now, looking at that now, it would go and do the work for you. So you'd say, right, I'm paying Anne, Mary and Mark on this occasion. Now, as a designer, me building this sheet for you, I would still consider that unfriendly to the users, because you as the user, if you had 500 people that you were checking, you would still have to look in every single cell. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to modify the statement, and I'm going to say, look, if Anne's sales is greater than or equals to 75. Now, if that's true, I want to see the word commission, which we've already seen anyway. But if it isn't, I don't want to see the word sack, because we wouldn't be really sacking them. We'll just leave it empty. So we just get rid of the word sack and we leave it empty. Now, when we press the little enter key there and we follow it down, notice now the only cells that you deal with is the ones that are full, because you know that they need paying commission. So now it would be more friendly to the user and letting the user use it. Now then, this is where it comes to understanding the 3 types of input. And the 3 types of input that we're talking about, can you remember what they were? Labels, which is text, values, which are numbers that are going to be calculated, and formulas, which start with equals. And if I was to bring your attention to it now, and I was to say to you, right, what's this cell here? Label, value, or formula? You answer the question, and then you say label. Then you come over to this one here, look. And if I asked you this one, and I said to you, what's this one? A label, a value, or a formula? You would say, well, it's a number, a value. And then you come over to this one. Is it a label, a value, or a formula? I get a mixed result on this one when people are asking me, guys. So I will say, some will say label and some will say formula. But the formula's an educated guess, if I'm honest with you. And then we come over to this one here. Now again, is this one a label, a value, or a formula? You tell me what you think it is. And then most people say a label. And then you come down here, look, and it's this one here. Have a look at this one. And notice this one, a lot of people would say value. And if you look at these two, because it's easier to identify on these two here, notice this one is on the left. It's aligned on the left because it's a label. And this one's aligned to the right because it's a value. But is it an optical illusion? Which it is. Now watch this. As I'm moving my mouse around here and I'm pointing to these cells and I'm saying to you, what's this one? Label, value, or formula? And you'll have been giving me answers, but you were guessing. And I know you were guessing because you cannot tell what these values are by just looking at this sheet here. It's impossible. What you've got to be watching at all times is this little fella up here, this bar here, the formula bar. Now watch this and watch this formula bar. As I place my cell pointer on the first one that I asked you, notice now we're looking at that one. It's a label, if you said a label. If you didn't, it is a label because it starts with text. But you know it's a label because when you look up here and it's a label, looking up here, it's a label. It starts with text, so it's a label, guaranteed. Then we come over here and notice in the cell it's 76, yeah, but up here, more importantly, it's 76. It's a value, so that one's a value. And then when you come over here, although it's a label result, notice up here it starts with equals. So that makes this cell a formula. And this, what you're reading in the cell, is the result of that formula. So this is what you call a formula-driven result. And that's what Excel does. So you look up here. This is where you make sure whether it's a label, a value, or a formula. And then you come over here. Now this is a label, but it isn't. It's a formula. All the formula is saying is equals A10. And if you look at what's in A10, it's her name, Anne. And that's why you've got. So again, this is a formula-driven result. And then you come down here, look, and this one's a value, but it's a result because up there, look, It starts with an equals. So it's a formula. And this is the result of the formula. And it's a value result. That's all it is. So when you're working in Excel, guys, it's imperative that you watch this little formula bar at all times, because that'll let you know exactly what's going on. Now let's imagine you were using a worksheet and you come along and you accidentally type something in here, and you wrote it out. I'd say, oh, don't worry about that. It was Anne, so we just replace Anne and we write it in, no problem. It's like this one. If you went to a value and you overwrote it, and you put some, oh, well, I've made a mistake. Oh, don't worry about that, It was 74 or whatever it was, 76, and you just put it back in, and that's fine. But if you land on a cell and it starts with an equals and it's a formula, and you overwrite that one, you might not be able to put that formula back. In fact, the chances are you wouldn't be able to write the formula. So now you've messed the sheet up and you've made a big error in the sheet. So that's why when you're working in Excel, it's imperative that you land on the cell that they ask you. So they might say to you, go to B7 or B8 or whatever. And when you land on the cell, you check, obviously, that this is the correct cell that you're on, and then you correct the contents of the cell. And if it starts with an equals, do not type, because if you do, you will overwrite that formula if the designers have not protected the cells. And that's pretty much where you need to be. Now notice down here, this one appears to be empty. But when you put your cursor on it, or your cursor box on it, look, notice it's not empty. It's a formula-driven result that's showing you empty. But notice up here, it starts with an equals. So that is a formula. Again, you wouldn't type because it starts with equals. And it's pretty much that simple, guys. Labels, values, and formulas. Labels are text, and you'll tell it in the formula bar. Values are numbers that are going to be calculated, and formulas start with equals. If it starts with equals, you must not type. Now, the next little thing I want to show you is up here. Now, this is real straightforward stuff. So what we're going to do in here, I'm just going to put some cells in here. Now, when it comes to formulas, you've got two types of formula. You've got what you call a basic formula, and then you've got a function, and I'm going to show you the difference between the two. Now notice here we've got the 4 little 25s, and if I wanted to calculate them up with a basic formula, all I have to do is say equals that cell, notice it says B2, plus that cell, plus that cell, plus that cell. And notice all we're doing, we're saying equals B2 plus B3 plus B4 plus B5, press enter, and it goes and it adds them up. Then we come to this one, okay, and we'd use what we call a function. Now a function is a pre-built formula. This is where the big programmers and the mathematicians come in, and they sit down and they work it all out, and then they just put the boxes in that you have to fill in, and you don't have to worry about the maths. All you have to do is worry about where they're putting their data. Now if you come up here to the editing section, notice this editing section here, and notice this little button here. This is what you call your auto sum button. Now if you click on this little drop down here and you click, notice these are the most regularly used functions in Excel. You've got the sum, which will total them up and add them up. You've got the average, which will give you the average of them. You've got count numbers, so it will count how many you've got. This one will give you the maximum, and this one will give you the minimum. Now, there's one thing I do need to explain before we go into anything else. Now, the first thing is, when I showed you how big the sheet was in the previous video, well, it's 1,048,576 rows down, okay, by 16,000 and so columns across. And every cell on this sheet is identifiable by the grid reference. So we look at what column it's in and what row it's on, and we can identify the cell. But there will be times when you need to identify a block of cells. Now, what these become is what we term a range. Now, a range is really simple, guys. It goes from the first cell, like so, to the last cell, and that's all you're interested in. So if you go from here, you're starting on the cell B2, and if I go from B2 down to here, the last cell is B10. So in this case, the range would be B2 colon B10. And what that will do, it will write the formula. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger so you can see it. It'll write the formula for you, and that's the range within the formula. Likewise, if I went along from here, which is B2, which is my first cell, and then come along here, it goes from B2 to G2. So that one would write B2 colon G2. That's how you would write that range. Yeah. And then the other one that you would do, if you were going to do it, it would be from here, which is B2, and then we'd go down to there, which would be G10. So first one's B2, the last one is G10. So down here, it would be B2 colon G10. And that would be what we call the ranges. Now, when we come back to that sheet and we are going to put this little auto sum in, notice when I come up here and I click on that and say the sum, it'll put the range in. But notice it says equals sum, open bracket, D2 colon D5. That's the range that we're adding up. First cell there, look, to the last cell there. And then when we press enter, notice that goes and adds it up and gives you the result. Now, that's what we call a function. So you've got this one up here, look, which is the basic formula. And then this one up here, which is what we call the function. So the question to you is this: why would I want to use this one rather than that one? And why would I want to use that one rather than this one? And there is a time when I would want to mix and match my formulas. Well, just let me show you guys. In real life, irrelevant of what you're doing, whether you're working for a business or yourself, when you work your finances out and you work out what money you've got to play with this month, you would look at what's coming in your home, and that is your income table. And then you would look at what you have to pay out. So you have to pay the mortgage, the gas, the electric, the phones, telly, blah, 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 blah. Well, that would be your expenses table, okay? And then you take your expenses away from your income, and that's what money you've got to play out. So that's basically how it works. Now, in real life, all businesses are the same. They work out what they've got coming in, when they've got it, to work out what they've got coming in, they work what they have to pay out, and then they take the expenses away from, and that's the profit that they've made. But think of a shop that's near to you, and think of Tesco's, Morrison's, Lidl, Aldi, don't matter what it is, and notice that they wouldn't have a silly little piddly 4 characters, you know, that they would adding up. I've come down here, look, and I've come down to 1,564. But if you were to think of how many different products that they would sell today, that's what you would have to total up. Now, can you imagine if you had 1,564 products to add up, and you were saying equals this one plus this one plus this one plus this one? By the time you got to 30, you'd be word blind, and the formula wouldn't be workable because it would be too big. So what we do is we go to the bottom of the range and we use the auto sum. Now, if you click on the button, it goes straight to the sum. You don't have to drop that little arrow like that unless you want the average count. If you want one of them or more functions, you click the arrow. But if you don't, you just literally click on the word and it'll put the formula in. So you click on the button and bang. Now notice, The only difference between this formula and the one previous is the range. And it's the first cell and the last cell. And in this case, it started from D2 and it finishes on D1564, which is there. So when I press enter now, look, bang, that's added all them up in 2 seconds. And that's why you would want to use the function rather than the formula. And if you wanted to use the formula, yeah, that would be when you work in the balance, so when you're taking one away from the other. And that's the difference between what we call a basic formula and a function. That's that for now, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. If you've liked it, give us a like. Don't forget, if you subscribe, you'll be up to date with all the videos and we'll go through them. And you can also write a little comment if you need a little bit of help, and we'll explain what's going on and try to help you. I hope you found it helpful for you. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.